was great bumper music because I feel like our next guest just walks around humming that to himself a lot of days. The executive director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation, Brad White, with us in the big chair there. How you doing this morning, Brad?
I'm great, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Love talking to you. Of course, we're talking a lot today about Hurricane Katrina for obvious reasons, 20th anniversary. I've yet to find anybody that doesn't have stories from 20 years ago, and I suspect you've probably got some too. Just give an overview 20 years ago, what your part in all that was.
Well, I had a small part. I was living in Simpson County, my hometown at the time, and was working with the Simpson County Economic Development Foundation. My stepfather was on the board of supervisors in Simpson County, so a lot of my involvement then was very local. I mean, as far north as Simpson County is and relative to the Gulf of Mexico, we still had a lot of damage and a lot of trees down and stuff like that. So I was helping getting the older member of our families to places where they'd be safe, and then basically riding around with my stepfather helping him. We loaded up chainsaws and, like everybody else, just started getting busy trying to open up roadways. But the Department of Transportation, however, was very involved, and it's always an opportunity to brag on our maintenance forces because they were the tip of the spear right after the storm. And Governor Haley Barbour, tells a story about he never shall forget. It was the MDOT forces that were at the front of the line with bulldozers and chainsaws and other equipment opening a lane of Highway 49 from Hattiesburg down to the coast, and behind them were National Guardsmen, Highway Patrol, and other first responders that were on their way to South Mississippi to deliver the help to the people that needed it. And, it seems like when weather's at its worst, that's when MDOT's at its best. And whether it's the hurricane responses, we've had ice storms in North Mississippi where we've had maintenance forces that couldn't drive to the maintenance barn but would get out and walk in order to get and walk for several miles in order to get to their respective offices and get on the equipment and get out and start doing the things necessary to help keep our highways and our bridges open as much as possible so the first responders and those delivering aid could get to the people that need it. So it was a shining moment, not just for the state of Mississippi, but especially for the Department of Transportation back in those times.
You started out talking about your involvement and about how you played a small part. There were no small parts when Katrina came in, because I don't care if it was just one, every single person that was helped by somebody else, that helper made an enormous difference in their life during that time. And I think sometimes we forget that. Everybody has a story, and every one of those stories is hugely important. Now, you might have the answer to a question I was asked actually last night by my wife, because we were talking about Katrina. We were talking about everything that happened, and I was showing her some pictures and showed her some pictures of, it left boats in the middle of the road when Katrina came through. How do you get a stack of boats out of the middle of the road?
Well, our Public Affairs Division did a wonderful job in doing a documentary of sorts, about a 30-minute documentary on Katrina from the MDOT perspective. Governor Barbour is on it. We interviewed a lot of former employees that were working back then, and they tell some fascinating stories. And one is Melinda McGrath, former executive director that was an assistant chief engineer at the time of Katrina, tells about a barge that floated up onto, I believe it's Highway 90. It was on one of our highways, and they blew it up in order to remove it. But at the time that it got there, when they were contacting people saying, look, if y'all don't move it, we're going to destroy it, it was part of a casino. It still had the slot machines full of money on it. And so they had to get there and load up all the money and get the money out of the way. And then the Department of Transportation blew up the barge. So it was a fascinating time when you're looking back at some of the things and the stories that the people that were on the ground had. And I would encourage everybody, it's on the Department of Transportation's YouTube site, and we've promoted it on our social media, but it's a fascinating documentary that has a perspective of a lot of the MDOT employees that were involved in that recovery effort. And obviously it also has Governor Haley Barbour on it, who, Katrina was he and Miss Marsha's finest hour in many ways, just like the state of Mississippi, and we were blessed to have him at the helm when something like that happened. But I would encourage everybody to go find that documentary and watch it.
I'm going to ask you a very similar question to the one I asked Mike Cheney last hour. After Katrina, after the fallout, after everything was back up and mostly running, but from Katrina to now, has MDOT changed anything about the way they do things to be prepared for another event like this?
Well, I mean, I came back to the department just 4 years ago, so a lot of the lessons learned were already put into place by previous leadership. But since I've been there, when there are storms that come up in the Gulf, obviously there's preparations that are made, from moving assets around to South Mississippi to have assets readily available whenever they're needed, as far as removing traffic signals and stuff like that that could become projectiles that are flying through the air, getting those off the poles and off of lines, and things like that are just common sense that I don't know that they learned that from Katrina, we have always done it. But our folks down in this is MDOT's District 6 and District 7, which are in South Mississippi, I mean, they've been through several storms, and they know how to get ready and how to best position all of our assets in a way that we can respond as quickly and as best as possible. And again, I just want to brag on our folks, because you think about it, they're leaving their homes, they're leaving their families in order to get out and serve the people of Mississippi. And I just can't say enough about how proud that all of our maintenance forces and construction forces make us in times like that.
You make a great point there, because every one of those first responders, every volunteer, everybody who was out there trying to help other people had family at home. They had people that they loved, that they were concerned about as well, and tried to juggle both of those responsibilities at the same time. It's not easy. And I'm sorry, a lot of people would be, I'm not going to say justified, but would feel comfortable saying, hey, I didn't sign up for this. I got to look after my wife, my kids, but they do anyway. Well, and that goes further than just having a job.
That's right. And Governor Barber, has told a story. I don't know if it's on this documentary, but I've heard him tell before about those that were getting help, getting out into South Mississippi, and they would come up on a family that had lost everything, and as they stopped to try to deliver help to them, this one particular family said, we're good, we can take care of ourselves, but there's a widow woman down the street that needs help. Could you please go to her? I mean, it was a time of great destruction and loss, but it was also a time that we were able to show the rest of the country what Mississippi is made of, and I believe that everybody liked what they saw. I think they genuinely saw the best that we have to offer, which is the love and compassion and the spirit of brotherly love and helping your neighbor that was so prevalent, throughout.
I'll throw one more word on that very good, very well-spoken pile of words you just gave us: selflessness.
Right.
Sometimes you got to put your fellow man ahead of yourself.
Right.
And a lot of people did that, and we still see that even now. It was just a few months ago we had major tornado activity all over the state. And your team at MDOT heavily involved in all of that when that kind of thing happens as well, right?
That's right. Absolutely. But look, I would be remiss if I didn't pause and say something about another major player during the aftermath of Katrina. Was my former boss, Senator Thad Cochran, who happened to be chairman of appropriations and had 40-something years of equity and personal relationships that he had built up, and being a person that was seen as someone that could work in a cooperative manner across the aisle and with others. And him holding the gavel of appropriations was key, because I believe he was the one that helped, along with the rest of our congressional delegation, to put the tools in the toolbox that allowed Governor Barber then to take them and do what was needed from an executive standpoint, and helping to rebuild and make sure that we recovered and came back stronger than before. And you had two individuals there with Senator Cochran and Governor Barber that had a deep admiration and long friendship between the two of them. And it was a pretty good team to have for Mississippi at that moment.
those kind of situations, you're only as good as the team that's in place to help you, and that's always has to be something that's on everyone's mind, I think.
Right.
We're talking with Brad White, the executive director of MDOT. Can you stick around through the break?
Sure.
Yeah, well, find him a donut or something back in the break room, Lance. Let's keep him occupied and happy, and we'll continue with Brad right after this on Mornings here on Super Talk Mississippi. Keep it here. Welcome back. Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes in on Friday, as usual, and in the big chair there, the executive director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation, Brad White. We're focusing today a lot of time on Katrina for very good reason, but business and life still goes on. What kind of projects you got working right now with MDOT around the state?
We're all over the state. I mean, we're getting ready to move forward on a capacity project in DeSoto County on I-55, Highway 7 in Lafayette County, south of Oxford. We've got a lot of work on Highway 15 in Tippah County, Union County, preparing for work in Pontotoc County, Highway 19 in Neshoba County, the Flowers Interchange, and I-20 over in Warren County. Commissioner Simmons and Congressman Thompson just cut the ribbon on a completed project in Greenville with the Greenville bypass that will help get truck traffic off of downtown and move more safely. As you move south, I mean, we've working on projects on I-59 in Forest County. We've got under construction projects on Highway 49 in Harrison County, I-10 in Hancock and Harrison County. I think that's, I always get mixed up, 57 or 67 over in Jackson County, a hurricane evacuation, safe roads project that we're widening and doing there, and then preparing on Highway 90 through Jackson County. So we've got work going all over the state of Mississippi, and those that I just mentioned are that's just the capacity projects that we have underway, and I'm sure I left some out. We have maintenance projects, paving rehabilitation, and kind of the work that preserves the investment that the taxpayers have on the 33,000 miles of roads all over the state. We have projects like that going on in all 82 counties, bridge replacements and repair. Work all over the place. So
it seems to me, going around the state and looking at things, it almost feels like there's more work being done right now than we've seen in a while. At one time, It seems concentrated.
Well, it's true. Each year for the last 3 years, we have broken the previous record on the amount of awards the commission would let to contract and just work all over the state. And this past year, I mean, we topped, I think 3 years ago, $1 billion a year in new work that the commission awards and puts out around the state. So that's the reason for everybody seeing the orange barrels is the legislature has stepped up and, along with the congressional delegation, and helped us have the resources necessary to carry out our mission. And we've made sure that when we run about $1.5 billion a year of an annual budget, 97% of that goes directly in some form or fashion to a project around the state with one of the modes of transportation. And primarily, most of our investment is obviously with highways and bridges, but we're putting several $1 million into the other modes of aeronautics, ports and waterways, rail, public transit, and leveraging other federal dollars to bring back into the state to enhance those modes of transportation so that we are making sure that we're not just the old highway department. We are the Department of Transportation, and we look at our highway or our transportation system holistically, and our folks do a really good job. So we're very grateful. Everybody plays a part. It's a team sport, but our political leadership makes sure that we have the resources. We make sure to devote those resources where the taxpayers would expect them. And I get out of the way and let our professional staff do what they do best, and I think it's working for the state.
You mentioned the orange barrels, the orange and white striped barrels, and that brings a question to mind. As the amount of projects and the amount of mileage of roads and highways and the interstate inside the state of Mississippi that have some kind of work being done, do you ever come close to running out of barrels?
No. Well, our contractors have a lot of those. So a lot of that is not actually property of the Department of Transportation. It's the people that we've hired out, our partners in the private sector that provide that and do the work that the people are seeing out there. But, it's a funny thing. The bad thing about what we do is at best we're a nuisance or an aggravation because all the work that we do is right in the middle of where people are trying to drive and conduct their daily lives. So we greatly appreciate the patience that most Mississippians give us while we're trying to enhance our transportation system and make sure that our bridges are as strong as possible, that our pavement is being rehabilitated, and that our system is growing to be more efficient, carry traffic better. So, it's kind of funny watching that you have a short-term aggravation and inconvenience while the work's being done, but it really pays out once the work's done, and I think Highway 49 through Rankin County is a perfect example of that. So we appreciate the patience that the people give us while we're trying to do that.
Well, I think you're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because if the road needs work, everyone's aggravated. If you're working to do that work on that road, everyone's aggravated. And when you get done, instead of getting the credit for, wow, this is nice now, it's, well, that's the way it's supposed to be, now keep it that way. It seems to me from the outside looking in, you guys can't win.
Well, by and large, everybody's very appreciative. Now, you get some keyboard cowboys on Facebook that like to, blow smoke, but most of the time their facts are not right, and it's kind of easy to let that stuff go in one ear and out the other. But people are normally down on what they're not up on. And so we try to do a good job through our public affairs and putting as much information out as we can, so that the people know what's going on and why certain things may be the way they are. And most of the time, whenever we're successful in informing the public gives us a break, and we're appreciative of that.
Sorry, let me finish writing that down, because I am stealing keyboard cowboys who like to blow smoke on Facebook. I'm using that. That is absolutely perfect, because it's true. And, there's frustration. You get that. It's understandable. But at the same time, let's take a moment to comment on one other thing, and that's the safety and the awareness that you need from the drivers out there when they're going through construction zones. Their blood pressure may be up a little bit. They may be having a bad day before they get to that construction zone. But you still have to exhibit some caution and some care for the safety of the workers who are just standing there 5 feet from where you're blowing past. You got to keep those things in mind, don't you?
Yeah, and Dave, it's sad. We've lost a lot of our MDOT family from motorists that weren't paying attention, texting or doing whatever, and come through a work zone and hit somebody. We've got other individuals that have been part of the MDOT team that have lost limbs. Luckily did not lose their life, but all from people that just weren't paying attention, that got aggravated or impatient and would speed through a work zone. So sometimes when you see workers out there, if somebody doesn't look like they're necessarily doing anything, we have a lot of folks that are just simply on lookout. And we've had a situation that comes to mind where one of our guys that were stationed in a place that his job was just to kind of try to watch out for someone that wasn't driving the way they should, and be able to radio back to where the work's being done to warn them. And this happened one time, and one of our folks still got hit, but it saved his life by virtue of the employee being able to give him a heads up. So, yeah, work zone safety is a very important aspect of what we try to tell the public, because those people have families. I mean, those individuals are somebody's daddy or mother or daughter or sister or brother that are there, and we want to be sure that they get back home okay. So it is a partnership that we need with the motoring public.
Seems like there's got to be an upper end. You talked about the last 2 or 3 years. You have broken the previous record for the number of miles and the amount of work being done, which was set the year before that. When does that top out, or does it? Because it's kind of an ongoing job, isn't it?
Well, we have a finite amount of money. The legislature obviously adjusted our funding model this past session. Next year, we'll start seeing additional revenue that's recurring in fashion, so that our contractors and partners in the private sector can expect more work and be able to budget and plan for that. So we'll make sure that what resources we have, we get out. Our team's very successful in securing federal grants and earmarks that go beyond the federal money that's within our programmatic dollars that we spend. But it is a finite amount of money, and unfortunately the needs are going to probably always outweigh the resources we have to address them. But given the hand that we've got, I think our folks play it pretty well.
You're doing a good job, literally all over the state. You can't go 30 miles without running into some kind of work being done somewhere to make improvements or just to maintain what we have. And hats off to everybody that goes out there and, again, stands within 5 feet of 60-mile-an-hour traffic and just goes about their business. That's a different kind of person. If you're hiring, I'm not interested, Brad, for just that reason, basically.
We are hiring, and I think it's a good place to work, and that's primarily because what we do is tangible and is a standing legacy for the betterment of our state, and our people do a really good job.
That's exactly right. So get a hold of them. If you're looking for work, they're looking for workers. That sounds like a good match to me. Brad White, Executive Director of MDOT. Always enjoy having you on the air with me, sir. Keep up the good work, and we will talk again soon.